Welcome to the Everyone is a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl.
Hey, I met you. You are not cool.
With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick.
I am the smart. I am the smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-R-T.
And Josh Adams.
Stick around.
Visit us at IHateCritics.net. We're also at EveryoneIsACriticPodcast.com. We're on Facebook at Everyone is a Critic. Our Twitter handle is CriticsPod, along with our Instagram account, same handle. There you can check out our top fives, read any news we have. Sean reviews a lot of movies. Those go up there as well. And just talk with us on the pod. You know, there's a lot of chance to interact with us as well there. We are also on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and all your other podcatchers. If you could go to iTunes and subscribe and then rate and review the show, we will read your review on the air. And we got a new review this week. First one since September, and it's from Tristan Lane. I don't know if everybody knows who that person is.
Nope.
Hopefully not. But it's, it just says one of my favorite podcasts, and that was it. So that was a 5-star review. So
nice.
Thank you, Tristan, and feel free to interact with us on Facebook and throw your suggestions out there. It's always fun to have a new face in the crowd that talks back to us.
We had quite a few Facebook likes this week, actually, come to us out of seemingly nowhere. I would only imagine it's because your discussion on Split
perhaps
may have attracted a lot of interested parties.
Yeah, it was really cool to see that. Just kind of, I thought maybe one of you shared it, so maybe not. Shared go like our page and whatever. Because sometimes we do that and a bunch come in, but I didn't do it. So
I don't know anybody, so I've already pleaded to them probably 6-7 times since we started this thing to like the page, and if they haven't by now, then they're just wrong.
The best way to help support the podcast is IHateCritics.net/Patreon. We released a bonus episode last week. I hope it wasn't too painful. I hope you had as much fun as we did doing it. And we will work in kind of more obscure movies into that bonus show. And we gave it to everyone for free this time. From now on, it's just going to go to the Patreon supporters, and then I'll throw it up on Bandcamp for $1 or whatever if you want it. But it's more fun for them, and it's fun for us. So it's one of the perks of being a Patreon supporter, not to mention merch and whatnot that we have yet to make since changing our name and logo and all that. But it'll happen.
Yeah, eventually.
And in terms of announcements, that's kind of all I got. For news, we talked about the Avengers trailer. Any change in opinion since that bonus podcast we threw up? Really, really tired and kind of punchy.
I'd like to thank Sean because his including both of our Twitter tags on a picture of Thanos redressed as Homer Simpson holding a donut. You bastard. Now I can't unsee that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
On Twitter this week. He does look like Homer Simpson.
Kind of. But, I mean, it seems like overwhelmingly everybody loves the trailer. I think Sean and I liked it the least in the world. And not that we disliked it. We were kind of neither here nor there on it. But it's getting a lot of love from everybody else in the world. So
it's the most watched trailer within a specific period of time, of all time, which makes sense.
Except for we were like, Matt Lauer's going to kill this trailer. Clearly that didn't happen. But Jurassic World never came out.
It never did, and I'm going to hold true to my crackpot theory that NBC with Universal in tandem, with that news, tried to fire out in advance of Disney ABC releasing their Avengers trailer. Well, lo and behold, it didn't matter.
And then we got 2 small trailers before we get to some news that Sean had. We'll start with Flower.
Flower, yeah, this is a weird one starring Zoe Deutsch. I wasn't quite sure what to make of this. This was a Red Band trailer, and I still don't quite know what this movie is about, even after having seen this trailer. Couple of girls kind of going on something sort of an adventure. R-rated stuff happens. Trailer's over. I don't really know what the story is based off of that.
No, I looked at it as something of a bit more indie or a bit more artsy hard candy, if that makes sense for anyone, where there are younger girls that are they say in the trailer vigilantes. I'm not sure if that's what the whole movie is about or not, but at least trying to take advantage on their side for a change as opposed to being taken advantage of.
There is a movie, I believe it was Polish from the 1960s, about two kind of antisocial girls who kind of, not a killing spree per se, but like they go on a very dangerous and weird adventure. I'm not sure if this is related to that in any way, but it was called Flower, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't horribly far from Spring Breakers either. I mean, it just kind of the idea of. So I guess I'm somewhat curious. It'll depend on what kind of buzz it gets later on. But Jason from New Mexico says having teenage daughters kind of hurts his opinion, and that makes sense to me. I mean, there's definitely been movies where I'm like, it just doesn't work because of kids or whatever, and I totally get that. And I may be in that boat too. I'll probably have to wait and see. I'll step off the bandwagon until someone starts pulling for this movie, and then just for shits and giggles, I threw permission out there because we didn't have another trailer. So.
Because you were waiting for the other trailer to come through, and it
never did. So, thoughts on that?
I really don't know what to say about this trailer. Rebecca Hall is really interested in the topic of sex, and she picks movies that have that as a theme. With Professor Marston and this one, and Vicky Cristina Barcelona. These movies that she's fascinated by. These ideas, and hopefully this one is as good as those. Those are really good movies. So,
I liked what one of the grab quotes was, though, that it said a grown-up movie talking about real grown-up issues or something like that. And the subject, I suppose, rubs me the wrong way in terms of my personal thoughts on it. But then again, you can't just tell somebody how to behave in a relationship or intimately or whatever. And so I think this sounds like an interesting premise for a film. I don't know if it's going to be in our time of day like something like Indecent Proposal was in 1993. Well, I mean,
I don't think it'll be that big.
Not big, but like adding to the discussion a little bit on what culturally we talk about when it comes to sexuality. I mean, I would definitely like something more along the lines of this than 50 Shades of Grey, which is, or whatever, supposed to tell us where we are as a society there. But
sorry, I need to correct myself. That movie I mentioned about flowers earlier, there was Daisies. A movie called Daisies from 1966.
Yeah, that person was just about ready to send us a message on Twitter. They just stopped because you corrected it.
I'm just saying, it's got a similar premise, a similar idea as this movie.
That's cool. And then awards. There's some awards that went out or whatever. You were going to talk about them. I don't know. It's your job. I'm just getting you there poorly.
The National Board of Review came out this week and said that The Post is the best movie of 2017. They gave Best Director, though, to Greta Gerwig for Lady Bird. And New York Film Critics then followed up. They went a different direction. They gave their Best Picture to Lady Bird. And then L.A. was out today with Call Me By Your Name as number one. So there's a lot of interesting ways that this is breaking down. Get Out has won a couple of awards, which has put it directly in the running for Best Picture, which is kind of a surprise to a lot of people. So we're talking about frontrunners. I mean, 3 Billboards took a pretty big hit this week. It barely got any notice. A couple of second place votes in Los Angeles, but really no other notice. So that film, as much as I really liked it, we'll talk about it, did not get what it needed. But Call Me By Your Name is a solid frontrunner, it would seem, at this point, especially with the surprise Timothy Chalamet coming away with 2 awards this week. He won Best Actor in both New York and Los Angeles, which is kind of a shock, and Gary Oldman hasn't won anything, which is, again, another big shock for people. People still believe that the Academy will go towards Oldman, but the NBR, which has that similar kind of old base to it that the Academy does, went with Tom Hanks.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll have to see where the actors go when that comes.
That is a big question. The Critics' Choice nominations will be out next week. My ballot is in, but I really have no idea where anybody's going. There really is no front runner, which is by this time of the year is really surprising. There are a lot of people who are talking about maybe Dunkirk or Darkest Hour emerging as a front runner, but neither one of them has gotten any notice this week. Dunkirk did get some editing nominations, but nothing in the way of the Best Picture stuff. It was in the top 10 from the NBR, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I would say that when it comes to it, like I said, the Academy has that old base, so the NBR is a good signal for the Post. So that's something to watch. But Call Me by Your Name is the big shocker and I think the big winner this week.
But I don't know. This year, though, it seems like there's probably 10 movies right now that, I mean, I like a lot, but none of them are, I mean, there's one I like the most, and Lady Bird's right there, too, but none of them are really that. There's no
home run.
Right. Or they're either that or they're all home runs. There's just, there's none that are necessarily above the rest, really. I think you're kind of, cutting straws to make it.
I mean, it's strange, as Lady Bird is the most well-reviewed movie of all time now. And it's not necessarily considered a frontrunner for Best Picture, let alone a nomination, which baffles me. But then again, you go back again to that old base of the Academy that I keep talking about. They don't relate to a movie like Lady Bird.
We do this every year, though, and it does seem to change a lot between now and the nominations, and then when the nominations and the actual awards. So I still think it's way up in the air. We'll just see what happens here in December. But with that, we got 3 new movies this week, and we'll start with 3 billboards and whatever in Ebbing, Missouri, or whatever.
3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. It stars Frances McDormand as a mother whose daughter was murdered 8 months earlier, and there's been no movement in the case. So she sees these 3 billboards just outside of town, and she decides to purchase them and put up a message for the local sheriff, played by Woody Harrelson. This certainly does get his attention, and it leads to a number of unexpected and surprising consequences. This is a really interesting movie, really well made. Martin McDonagh is the director who did Seven Psychopaths and In Bruges, is one of the most underrated movies of all time. Seven Psychopaths was not very good. I was really disappointed with that one, but In Bruges I'll stand behind all day. And this is more in line with that film than it is with Seven Psychopaths, minus the humor of In Bruges. This one does not have a sense of humor at all, I would say, which is kind of not what I expected based off of that trailer. I thought there might be a couple laughs in this movie. There's no laughs. This is a very serious film.
I don't know. I watched it in a theater, and there were some laughs. I think there was more humor there than you're giving it credit for. But I think it's more subtle. I don't think it's. I don't know. It's definitely not a comedy by any means, but. I don't know, Josh.
Yeah, I really enjoy this. Frances McDormand is like the best at being serious but still accessible, where you can tell that she's a magnificent actress, but you can't see her acting, if that makes sense. And I look at her almost famous character as like the greatest version on screen of my own mother, and it makes sense that she would play this role with the type of ferocity and almost despair that she does. There's stuff that happens in this movie that really made me angry and shake my head and get very emotional. I rode a tidal wave while I was watching this, and I could not move from my seat. The problem, of course, with that is there's a resolution at the end, regardless of how you consider what a resolution is, that is the right resolution, but it doesn't necessarily appeal to my sensibilities as a film goer. I want to see something finalize itself, and without giving anything away, I can tell you that it is a bit up in the air what exactly is going to happen, or has happened, or will happen. The performances in this film, though, are so strong. Frances McDormand, Woody Harrelson, who I'm normally not drawn to, is really strong in this movie. Sam Rockwell plays an idiot the best possible way that you could play an idiot. I mean, that has an arc that matters. McDonough manages to craft this movie around character arcs and fit everyone's piece in just right, so you get enough time with them on screen to make it all effective, and you don't just focus on Frances McDormand's revenge story. I mean, she's got a son that has to deal with things. She's got an ex-husband who's got his own arc. It's an impressive film. I guarantee it's going to be in my top 10 for the year, but that doesn't mean that I ever want to see it again. and I hope that makes sense to our listeners who will come across a film sometimes that says, man, that's powerful, but I don't ever want to watch it again.
Yeah, there's really not a likable character in this movie. They have likable moments, for sure, but there's no one that you're just kind of rooting for things to work itself out, more so than rooting for anybody in particular. And but at the same time, I never was like turned off, if that makes sense. I was definitely glued to my seat, just kind of going for the ride, and completely shocked a couple times, like not seeing certain things coming. Mm-hmm. So it was a really good experience. A completely packed theater, every seat sold out. When I texted you guys afterwards, someone did come sit next to me, so at the very last. There's something that happens at the end, and you know what Sam Rockwell's character is doing, and there's an old couple sit next to me, and the old lady whispers to her husband what he's doing, and then when it finally plays itself out, because clearly you know what, I mean, you're an idiot if you don't know what he's doing. He goes, I guess you were right. Kind of pissed me off a little bit. But the girl to my left, who was by herself as well, she kind of seemed to be enjoying it the same way I was, so that was kind of nice to have at least some camaraderie in the audience that wasn't an idiot. But overall, I don't know. I really enjoyed the movie. Like I hate using the word enjoy because it's not like a fun little. Because it's definitely not a comedy,
right?
But there's just kind of subtle black comedy things in it.
Yeah, her driving by and watching the newscaster give a report that is so full of garbage. The reporter doesn't care what happened to her daughter. The reporter is clearly, by her tone, attempting to maximize the sensationalism of all of it, and her filth spewing out of the window made me laugh out loud. So there are a couple of small moments like that with Frances McDormand specifically that had
Woody
me
Harrelson
laughing.
too.
Yeah.
He has some good stuff. And Peter Dinklage, for as little as he's in there, he's got some funny stuff too.
Oh yeah.
But again, it's not a comedy.
It's not. Sam Rockwell is definitely not playing a comic character,
No.
even as he is the subject of some jokes in the movie. This is the most complicated performance of any actor this year, and it's shocking to look at the award season and not see him getting much talk. You finished second in Los Angeles in the supporting actor category behind Willem Dafoe, but that award seems to be going to Willem Dafoe regardless of what anybody else does for his work in the Florida Project. But Sam Rockwell, I think, is so much more complicated. I've seen Florida Project. It's very, very good. I think Sam Rockwell is so much more complicated, and it's such an incredible arc because you hate this guy, but by the end you're kind of like you're not terribly hating him anymore, and that is such a difficult needle to thread with this character, and he does that, and he does it brilliantly.
And he's an idiot, so this movie really does live and die by this character. If he ends up being too goofy, this movie doesn't work. It falls apart. So he's really walking this fine line of being a believable idiot that's not just silly, and he knocks it out of the park.
And I tell you that that use of that song "Walk Away, Renee," I thought it was great in the trailer. It's even better in the movie.
That's still the best trailer of the year. We saw it a number of months ago, and the movie is finally, available for us to see. And it doesn't quite live up to the trailer, but it is one of the best films I've seen this year.
Anything else on Three Billboards before we move on? All right, Call Me by Your Name.
Yes, Luca Guadagnino is the director here. He is also the director of A Bigger Splash, which people missed out on last year. It was an amazing film with Tilda Swinton and Ralph Fiennes. This time he's directing a coming-of-age romance between a young boy and a slightly older man, a college graduate, kind of a graduate teacher. He's learning from the boy's son, played by Michael Stuhlbarg. And this romance is really well put together. This is a really beautiful movie. It's also a very smart film. These are really interesting characters who take their time. This is a movie that's very slow in building this idea of these two men together, this boy and this man coming together and finding each other, and it's not creepy. It's really a serious emotional connection that these two develop with each other, and I was invested in this from moment one to the last. It's just so beautiful and it's so well structured, and the journey is so emotional between these two. It worked on every level for me. I was really deeply moved by it. And Armie Hammer is just incredible. But Timothée Chalamet is the guy everybody's talking about who may win Best Actor for this.
Then that would be appropriate, I think. It is something else. The film has a specific style to it, in that the opening and closing credits are done in such a way that you're participating with the characters in the opening and closing credits in a way. I like the dynamic of how it was filmed. On top of that, how beautiful the film is. I mean, we're talking about 1983 here in northern Italy, but the landscapes are far older than that. And so at times I caught myself thinking, is this movie set in the 50s or 60s? That's why they can't say anything about their relationship. Wait, no, this is 1983. I had to keep resetting myself, usually via a pop tune in the film. But the romance that happens here, I had a hard time going in thinking that I was going to be okay with that, because the trailer told me that something was taking place that the film thought was okay, but I wasn't going to say it was okay. And I'm not going to make any broad declarations here. All I can tell you is that the film makes it work in a way that you believe that these two people have a deep and solid connection. I wouldn't have been able to write this had I written a review of this movie, for example. The line that Michael Stuhlbarg says towards the end to his son is incredibly deeply moving. It's one of the best lines that I've heard in a film in a long time, because you get in that line all of the regret of his life and the hope for his son's life. It's hard in a romance, especially a romance that is a non-traditional romance, and that I haven't seen a lot of movies like this where you've got a homosexual couple or a lesbian couple where I can't identify with that type of relationship, but I can identify with the feeling of love. This film not only does that, but then puts a coda on it like that's really gorgeous. This, too, is one of the best films I've seen this year, and I honestly did not expect it. Maybe it was because of Armie Hammer and my occasional distaste of him, but he's really great in this. This film needed a tall, built, good-looking American with a straightforward delivery, somebody that was no nonsense, but also he was no nonsense for a reason, and he had to put up a front for a particular reason. Perfect casting on both his side and on Elio's side.
Yeah, for me, like, I tend to not gravitate towards the romance movies, and there's a handful of movies that can win me over, and I have zero connection to this, and really was just kind of like looking at this as homework. I was amazed. Not everything you guys are saying is true, but for me, it was the watchability factor. The fact that it actually drew me in, it made me care, like, invest in this movie. And I never was bored. I never, and I'm kind of looking at it at a more broad level, but I was just kind of amazed that I was able to get through it and like it as much as I did. I guess I was shocked by that, because it's just not a movie for me generally. I'd never seen Annie Hall until this podcast. Those kind of movies don't appeal to me, but this one definitely pulled me in and got me invested, and I think that's pretty amazing.
It's so leisurely in its pacing, which that makes it all that more surprising than when you think about it. Because we're trained as film goers for a faster pace than what this movie is working at, but it's so intimate and it's so warm and inviting, this movie and this romance between these two men, that it becomes irresistible. It reminded me a lot of the quieter moments of Moonlight, which had that same kind of effect on me, which was just really deep intimacy, like intimacy that goes well beyond anything I feel like I'm capable of. And I think I'm drawn to movies like this.
I don't know. You seem like a very capable, intimate man. Don't let the lady listeners think that you're not what you are, which is not bad, right?
Yeah, but those are two very different movies. So you got this rich upper class setting
Right,
here.
yes.
There you get, but he's right. You're right.
This one's much safer than that one.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I've already gone through like 6 peaches this week.
Okay, thank you, because here I was seeing peaches in this film, trying to think, how can we turn this into something that just has...
I'm just sitting here going, just throw it away. Please, just get rid of that. Please, don't pick it up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow.
Don't feed it to the birds.
Or yourself.
Wow. Yeah.
Now you have to go see
on the
this
level of intimacy I'm not capable of.
But again, I mean, we're joking around here, but that's a memorable freaking scene.
It really is.
Well, that'll be, people who start to see this movie, because I'm imagining it's going to start to get a bit of an audience. That's going to be something people talk about for a while. And that alone is a pretty incredible thing to have a moment like that that'll probably stand the test of time in terms of pop culture. I'm guessing.
Just the citric acid, man. Like, ow. I'm reminded of the Nicolas Cage line in Face Off, I could eat a peach for hours.
You understand he wasn't talking about peaches, right?
He was just talking about a different kind of peach. Okay, we've gone too far.
We're not going to elaborate because we want you to go see the movie.
Right.
I mean, it's definitely good to always see something outside of, I don't want to say comfort zone, but
outside of your personal experience.
Yeah, your personal experience, and then just kind of what you're into. I'm into a certain type of movie. It's nice to go outside of it at times and, have your range, I don't know, get a little wider, if that's making any sense.
Experience film parents of a child that don't suck in 1983 or prior to that. I mean, it's really incredible how they foster the development and growth of their child.
Oh yeah, and again, as much as like I was talking about the best supporting actor, Michael Stuhlbarg's probably not going to get a nomination, but
that's silly
because he's actually ranking behind Armie Hammer in terms of who's the supporting actor in that one. Whereas Calamet's being pushed as the lead, and then you've got those two, and those two aren't even in the conversation because they've already given the award to Willem Dafoe.
We'll see. It's early. We thought to give it to Stallone, and that didn't happen. The Disaster Artist.
Yes, the focal point of this podcast this week is The Disaster Artist. Director James Franco telling the story of the creation of The Room, Tommy Wiseau's legendary bad movie. And the reason this movie is so good is simply because it just kind of repeats everything that Tommy Wiseau actually did and said, which is comical just in and of itself. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant piece of mimicry. He's such a comic figure, you don't really have to do much embellishing. And they're smart not to do too much embellishing here.
If anything, I've read the book, they toned it down. And they took the approach of, look, we love The Room, and we're going to kind of celebrate this movie instead of bashing it, because they bashed it, it just kind of turns into, this movie kind of becomes more forgettable, I think, if they don't.
When you get down to it, what people initially thought of The Room, or at least from people like me, from my perspective, I didn't see it in a midnight screening with a group of people. I saw it in the middle of the night on Adult Swim. You come away with this feeling of pathos, that this is kind of a pathetic, pitiable, bad movie. What is the truth of this film is that, yes, at the time it was pitiable, and it's still a bad movie, but it has taken on an air that is genuine. It's become this genuine thing where people genuinely appreciate it, not because it's bad, but they enjoy just how bad that it is. And for some reason, that makes it far less pathetic. and so the Room is successful, and we're able to celebrate that. And the thing about it is that what James Franco seems to get about that idea is that you can talk about it, you can make fun of the fact that it's terrible, but you can also celebrate the fact that it's successful and be happy about that and celebrate that success. Even celebrate Tommy Wiseau a little bit. That this movie is able to accomplish both of those things, indulging in the mockery of how terrible this was and how weird this guy is, but also being able to celebrate that it's very successful for what it is. That's where the movie succeeds, and it's very, very funny. I mean, just all the stuff that happened in Greg Sestero's book, which this is based on, is super funny, and this movie captures the funniest of those moments, and some of it's just by recreating moments from the movie The Room, which they do brilliantly.
You should talk about
I really
it
love this film.
I should follow it up because I think you'll say similar things here.
Yeah, I mean, I read the book, and I just finished the book, and I've kind of become obsessed with like going down this rabbit hole of watching interviews, and most of it's fairly recently. People are really seeming to embrace the fact that Tom Wiseau really put himself out there. Granted, he had $6 million to do it with, but it's still, he thought he was making Citizen Kane, and what do they call it, the Citizen Kane of bad movies? And he, I mean, and then to be laughed at, and then to turn around and just kind of embrace that, and what he says now is, you can laugh, you can cry, just don't hurt yourself, or something along those lines. That's how he refers to The Room. And there's just kind of this, I don't know, the way he's handled it, and not, a lot of people would go back to their cave and never come out again. And there's just something to appreciate about that. He accomplished everything he wanted to, just not the way he wanted to. But he still got there, so I don't know, it's kind of a cool, the whole thing's a cool story. The movie itself left out like 3 years, I think, because they were together for 3 years before this movie even got started, and Greg wanted nothing to do with it. So that story alone would have been a great story too, but it would have been hard to tell. They accomplished everything in the. Let me back up a second. What the movie does is they get the tone of the book right, with just a million great stories they couldn't put in there. They start, they start out with this scene where he's doing the streetcar named Desire, which in the book is like halfway through the book, you know. So that's how far. And then he starts fighting with. I don't know, the book. I like the book better, but the movie accomplishes everything in the book, and everybody likes the book better of everything. So that doesn't even mean anything, Josh.
Yeah, the weird part about this is that it's like actually really good filmmaking. I'm saying this about James Franco here, of course. Yeah,
your gritted teeth.
No, not really. This is the best film of his that I've seen in which he's been involved or has acted or whatnot. And the reason for that is, instead of being like tug-in-cheek, look at me, I'm weird, this is weird, celebrate our weirdness, what he's doing is like celebrating a particular friendship and celebrating a character or a person that really, what it seems like all Tommy Wiseau really wants is just to be accepted for who he is. He's like a loner that doesn't take crap from somebody. He doesn't need somebody to tell him what to do or whatever. He's very specific. He's very wealthy, whatever the case may be. But like, he's kind of an auteur in his own way, which is weird to say because I have no desire to really ever watch The Room again. Like, unless I would.
But he is clearly the author of this film.
Instead of just poking at it and just celebrating the weirdness and I don't know, pot doesn't enter the movie either at any point, which is like, I half expected it to, just to kind of explain, why is Tommy Wiseau this weird? Is he like a guy that's constantly on some sort of methamphetamine or whatever? No, he's a person who had real feelings and real thoughts and real desires, and he found a guy that he thought just as genuine as he was, or at least accepted him for who he was. That's what this film is about, and that's so pure and genuine that it made me feel kind of warm and fuzzy inside, even though I know that it's not like a warm and fuzzy movie or situation, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, fans of old Hollywood are the only ones who will get this reference, but he's like Otto Preminger without the talent. Because Otto Preminger was a lot like Tommy Wiseau in that he didn't understand people at all. He was rude. He was demanding. But he had the talent to back it up. Whereas Tommy Wiseau has no talent whatsoever and yet is still this sort of tyrannical, weird, doesn't understand people kind of guy.
Yeah. And Franco directed the movie in character. So he directed.
Don't make him hate this.
No, he directed it. He directed a movie about a movie directed by a guy he was playing. I don't know. It's
Even Seth Rogen started to hate him at a certain point.
yeah. He said Seth Rogen was a producer, so he didn't have to act right away, and he was saying that he couldn't stop laughing at James Franco for like the first 3 days, and Dave Franco had to tell everybody, "Look, he's in character. Just deal with it."
So really, Tommy Wiseau directed the Disaster Artist.
And supposedly they got Greg Sestero and Tommy Wiseau have a new movie coming out. This actually is supposed to be pretty decent, which is not the way to go.
No.
Yes.
It's called Best Friends.
With the R kind of like, so it's fiends and friends, the R's.
Oh, I see what they did there.
And maybe he's vampire.
That's the thing, too. This movie is genuinely funny. Like, if you don't like Franco and you don't like his comedic delivery or whatever, this is still
not Franco.
Okay, it's still
But you know what I'm
funny
saying?
movie, right? I mean, he's got Tommy Wiseau dead to rights in this movie. All of his inflections, his look is pretty much dead on. I mean, all of his mannerisms, even his brow furrows and whatnot, it just they invoke everything that we, manage to see in the room as well. So I'm a big fan of this film. I can't believe it I'm saying that, honestly, because I figured it would be a celebration of themselves and not something else. And that shows growth to me, as opposed to just being stagnant and making similar things over and over again. Honestly, about Franco, that just shows growth to me.
And he definitely disappears into the role. So if you do not like Franco, he's really not here. All those facial expressions he has, his tone, his mannerisms, aren't in this movie. He's definitely Tommy Wiseau. So, at least give it a chance if you're like Josh and don't like Franco. Before we get to our classic, let's head straight to our top 5.
Put your top 5. Who's your top 5?
And our top 5 this week is James Franco movies. We had a handful of submissions, and I don't have it pulled up, so I will get to where it is. From Charlie Messing, top 5 Franco flicks. Every single movie where his character dies or has a limb cut off with tons of pain. Just kidding, I like the guy. Not very much, but I like him. Spider-Man 2, 127 Hours, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, King Cobra, and True Story. Jason from New Mexico says, I have a theme for mine. I'll just go with chronological order. Somebody, The Holiday, Knocked Up, Knights and Rodanth, I don't know how to pronounce that, and The Green Hornet.
What is his theme?
I don't know.
Is James Franco playing himself in those movies?
I don't think he isn't knocked up, is he?
In The
Yeah,
Holiday.
Knocked Up. Yeah, he was
uncredited.
He was in the E scenes, one of the E news scenes.
Yeah,
with
and in The
Captain
Holiday,
Heigl.
during the trailers that Cameron Diaz is working on, he's playing James Franco, too.
And The Green Hornet, is he Franco?
I didn't notice the Green Hornet.
And I don't watch what's his Nicholas Sparks movies, which is Knights and Rodanth, right?
But I believe one of the Gear might be playing an agent or something in that.
Aha.
Maybe, I'm not sure.
Cousin Jeff had Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Spider-Man, This Is the End, 127 Hours, and Milk. Were there any Instagram or Twitter top 5s that you saw?
I didn't see it.
I didn't get any on my Twitter.
All right, I had, out of order, Spring Breakers, The Disaster Artist, This Is the End, 127 Hours, and Milk. Sean?
My number 5 is Spring Breakers. I think that movie gets better with time. The more I spend with it, I want to see it again. Number 4, Milk. Number 3, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Number 2, Spider-Man 2. And number 1, 127 Hours, which I think is just an incredible film, a remarkable piece of acting on his part.
just to be fair, I haven't seen Milk or 127 Hours, something that seems to be... I mean, I know how critically well received they were, so it probably behooves me to see them as well. I have avoided them because of him, so my bad.
And I wanted to challenge myself by not having Alien or Spider-Man or Planet of the Apes in there. I wanted something that was more him than movies that he just happened to be in. So that's what I tried to leave those out, so that's why I did.
Sure. My number 5 is Spring Breakers, 4 Alien Covenant. I get it, but fine. 3 The Night Before, 2 Spider-Man 2, and number 1 is The Disaster Artist.
All right, let's move on to our classic.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized, undisputed
Classic.
Our classic this week is The Room, and Josh had said that he never wants to see this movie again. I disagree. I would watch this with the group again in a heartbeat. I had a lot of fun watching it, and I could see being at one of those screenings being fun.
Oh, I had a great time at the Riff Tracks version of this. They had just such a great time making fun of this movie, and it's one of the best Riff Tracks experiences I've ever had.
You can't make this movie on purpose. It is insane. You could make the scenes like they did in The Disaster Artist. They could not remake this movie the same way. You just couldn't do it.
It is that level of weird and unique and bad. Just really poorly put together in a way that only this movie could be put together. It's such utter nonsense, and most of it just comes from Tommy Wiseau and his just complete and utter weirdness. He is like an alien wandering through all of this, and nobody else. It's like a bunch of really bad actors surrounded by this guy who's just like an alien who doesn't really understand human emotion, but he's following along on a script that kind of makes sense. So you got him. He doesn't make sense himself, and then the script barely makes sense and is coherent to a point. And that just creates this magical bad movie experience that is just absolutely unforgettable.
You keep saying script. Nobody except for him. Nobody in the cast saw the script, which I think probably lends to the bad acting.
I love that The Disaster Artist, the repeated times when someone says, "Is this going to come back?" No,
Like
it
breast
doesn't.
cancer. Lisa's mom has breast cancer. Does that matter? No, it doesn't.
It's symbolic. Of what?
The reason why I say I don't want to watch it again, I've seen it twice now. In the first time, it was like somebody that has a very alt type of personality, like you must see this because it's weird. And this is the same woman that wanted to show me Cannibal the Musical by Trey Parker and Matt Stone because it's so weird, and they get off on watching crap that sucks. And so for watching this, I was expecting total disaster, to be honest. And then I sit there watching and like, oh my gosh, this is so bad that I want to know more. Like, why is there a 5-6 minute long sex scene, and why is it at that angle? And why is there another sex scene 5 minutes later?
That's the exact same one.
Right? Who is this Denny character, and why in the world are they taking care of him in certain ways? And why is there like he owes somebody something, but it never comes back? Is it drugs? Is it money?
It's life. It's life experience.
It's
I think
symbolic.
I believe all his reasoning is that's life experience.
Yeah, that's like human behavior.
Behavior, yeah.
Okay, whatever. I still don't understand why it's called The Room.
Yeah.
Because there's a room that's predominant, like the living room, but I was expecting like a specific room to be significant in the telling of the story, and it means absolutely nothing.
I think when his original version was just going to take place in one room, but as he changed it, he didn't change the title.
There's no way that you can, as a human being, look at a scene when you're in the editing room and say, "Oh, that looks great," without being out of your mind a little bit. The scene where he goes to pick up flowers, okay, and that is so rapid and nonsensical, and humans don't talk like that. But he's an expert on human behavior, so
It really does feel like that was like cut into 3 different scenes and then somehow put together in the final edit.
Oh yeah, I don't envy the person that had it. I mean, if you watch even the Disaster Artist, more so in the book, but he wrote the script. He could not remember his lines for the life of him. And it would take him hours to get things right. And on top of that, he had 2, which I show in the Disaster. He had an HD camera and a film camera.
Which totally throws off the lighting of every scene.
He wanted to be the first director to ever do it. And he was.
Whatever came of that? Were there 2 different versions of the movie? Or they...
I don't know. I don't think so. I think one version just didn't get used. Or maybe they... I couldn't tell you if they went back and forth on it. The lighting looked like crap, so maybe they did. But, I mean, then there's scenes in this movie like, well, why would he record that? No one does that. Well, Tommy actually recorded stuff. He would record people. That's how Franco, Greg Sestero gave him all these audio tapes that Tommy would just record on his own.
Oh, God.
And Tommy didn't know Greg gave him to James, but he would just drive around in his car and listen to Tommy talking to himself on
Wow. That sounds like just pure insanity. The ravings of a madman.
Yeah, and but he's not normal by any means, but all of a sudden he's less scary. You know, like I don't think he's going to go kill anybody at this point. When starting this project, you know, jumping on this rabbit hole early on, I was just like, this guy's insane. Why are they hanging around with this guy? But he kind of is a harmless, lovable guy who's a little off. And I think he's learned from some of the misogyny in the room, which made it really uncomfortable early on watching it. But having the whole thing kind of come full circle is, I don't know, I could do this again with the right crowd. I wouldn't do it by myself ever. That would just suck.
Although I will say, when I saw it like in 2007 or something in the middle of the night on Adult Swim, it was like experiencing that Too Many Cooks video for the first time. It's just one of those things where your eyes just get wide and you just kind of you're immersed in it and you don't know what it is, and your brain is trying, because like your brain does, to try and make sense of what you're seeing and trying to put the pieces together so that it's coherent, and you can't. The first time you see the room, there's just no possible way to try and make it all fit together in a way that is rational. And that is an experience I will never forget, is sitting there for 15 minutes just trying to piece together what it was that I was seeing. Guys playing football in tuxedos. Then they're on the roof and there's a green screen. And weren't they going to get photos? They didn't get the photos. They were just wearing the tuxes for no reason. And then they're on the roof again, and he's cheating on her. What?
There's a party. They're going outside. They're going back in. They're going outside. They're going back in. It looks like the day changes. They come and then not to mention the poor actress who's kind of the star of it as well. She's playing a completely different character in every scene because she has no idea what the script is.
Right. I was going to say you don't know her motivation, but neither does she. So that's kind of an unfair statement.
She's completely relying on Tommy.
It makes her look so bad.
And, yeah, the excessive nudity from her, which has got... she said she can't watch the movie anymore, not because she's learned to embrace it.
Right.
But that when you're naked that long on screen, it's hard to watch. And that's the hardest part for me, too. It's everything else.
It's so unnecessary.
And
at a certain point, he did it just to be spiteful.
Well, I think he did it because he thought that's what they do in Hollywood. They need more. Like, he wanted to be naked in it a lot, too. He thought that's just what you need to sell movies.
Like Mark Damon.
But I go read that book. If you have not read that book, if you like The Disaster Artist at all, you will love the book. It is amazing. And according to Tommy, it's only 40% accurate.
So it's 100% accurate.
And they're still friends, so there's that. But I mean, this movie is about a guy whose girlfriend is cheating on him with his best friend. Everybody knows, including him, but somehow they seem to keep drawing it out anyway. He gets upset and kills himself. this is one of the greatest comedies ever made, and that's what it's about.
And again, you got to give credit to the disaster artists, the way they captured that moment, because I could see the way. I don't know if it necessarily played out like that the first time that was shown to an audience, but I could see where an audience would start laughing and just not stop laughing at that throughout. I could totally see that. But my imagination of that first showing was probably just people really confused.
In the book, Greg watches it with his family first, and they were on the floor laughing. So he knew what he was getting into. And a lot of the people in that first screening were a part of the cast and crew, so it was probably, I don't know if they were yelling. Maybe they were yelling, "Do it," because of working with him. Because he went through like 3 or 4 crews. The people just kept quitting. The whole line producer thing, which isn't in the movie, is amazing. He lost the director of photography because they wouldn't hire a line producer. He goes, "We got Greg. Greg's line producer." He goes, "If you don't have a line producer on Monday, I quit." Monday comes up, "Greg's here." He goes, and he walked off set. But I don't know. The whole thing is just kind of fun to play around with and watch. There's a million YouTube videos. All the other actors got together on Kickstarter, made a movie or a mini-series or a TV show called The Cast of the Room. A kind of a mockumentary of where they are now, and that's kind of fun. I only watched a couple episodes of that. There's just a lot. There's a lot there that this movie has turned into, which is pretty insane.
Yeah, at one point, one of the actors quit. They just replaced him and didn't tell anybody. He's a different character now. And he takes over and starts doing that guy's essentially the stuff that guy would have done if he was still in the movie.
And then that guy comes back in a scene later on. It's don't watch it alone. If you're gonna watch it, make sure you're with a group, because I mean, maybe you could. You won't have the same experience necessarily. You're guaranteed to have a good time if you're with a group, and you're not. And it's not suggested to you by somebody annoying. I gotta imagine that's gotta suck.
Would also recommend Riff Tracks has it too. So
oh yeah,
if you get a chance to see it with Riff Tracks, they're amazing.
Anything else before I move on? All right. There's something new we got coming up.
3 tomatoes are walking down the street. Papa tomato, mama tomato, and baby tomato. Baby tomato starts lagging behind, and Papa tomato gets really angry. Goes back and squishes him. Says, "Ketchup."
That was supposed to end there. I forgot to edit it.
Is that why it's still going?
Yeah. I don't have a stop button. But Josh and I went and caught up on some movies that Sean had seen, or both of us had seen. And I guess we're going to talk about The Big Sick, Get Out, and American Made, anything, and Ghost Story.
Ghost Story.
Where would you like to start?
How about The Big Sick?
Yeah,
that makes sense. I mean, we've been waiting all week, and I wanted to write a review, like get something on paper first to organize thoughts, mainly because you both had been so ebullient about it. I wanted to make sure that I came to this show with some organized thoughts as opposed to just pure emotion. And I watched it on Tuesday, and it's Sunday now when we're recording, so there's been some time spent in between it. I didn't finish the review because I had my son all weekend. Go figure, I'm not going to be able to do that. But here's the thing about it. It's a very good movie. I like it. I do. I like it. I think that it showcases that Kumail Nanjiani is like not only a really good comedian, but I like his style. I like his deadpan delivery. I like the structure in which he tells jokes. That's definitely more along the lines of the comedy that I go for. And the performances are fine in the film, like especially Holly Hunter. I think that she's really the part of this that I went to the most. What you guys talked about originally when this movie came out was that it's the most realistic romance you'd seen, or at least I know for sure you had said.
Well,
that.
it's real. It happened. I think that's what I was getting at. But yeah,
and of course I know that this is real. I mean, Kumail and his wife wrote the film. Okay, so there you have it. And it's about their courtship and their breakup and her illness and their reconciliation. Okay, fine. What I couldn't get behind, and I'm watching it with my girlfriend, and sitting there a couple times. And I'm like, I'm wanting to stop the movie. Stop the movie. All right, that's it. Because I need to talk this out. How in the world does she walk out on him? They break up because once she sees that there are pictures of Pakistani women inside of a container, she assumes the worst immediately out of... okay, I can't look at Sean. Okay. This happens every time.
Put your hands up like this. Look at me.
She seems to assume the worst out of him, that he has been going behind her back and is still planning on doing a particular thing. To me, what that indicated was, well, there's just another one that I'm supposed to hold on to for the future. And for him, getting rid of them wasn't a catharsis that advanced his relationship with her. It was just it exists, and she took it the complete wrong way. And in the end of this conversation, she is saying, do you really see a future for us? And he's like, I love my family. It's not like I don't see a future for us. He's like, we neither of us expected to get to this point because we were both insistent that we weren't going to get to this point. He's taking it as, let's see what we can do to figure this out. And she's taking it as, you're clearly not dedicated enough to me. I'm gone. Don't call me again. Boom. And that pissed me off. I mean, if that happened... okay, that happened. That doesn't mean I have to like it. So does that mean that I write the film off because of that? No. What that means is that I don't appreciate how the film frames her as the deciding factor for their relationship. He needs to make up to her after her illness and realize what he did wrong. He has to come to her in her coming back home party and try and convince her to be his... partner again. What bothers me about this is she also didn't have specific dedication to him until a certain point as well. They both didn't know what they were getting into. It wasn't just him. And what bothers me about this is it perpetuates this idea in some people's heads that the woman is the one that you really need to suck up to in a relationship, that it's not a mutual decision-making thing. And that really bothered me. And if that's the way that their relationship worked, where he was deferent to the point of giving up his own goals to make her happy, or his own particular rights took a back seat to what was more important to her, then good for them. And he was still able to communicate with his family in the way that he wanted to. And that is my favorite scene in the film, by the way, is when he goes back to his family's dinner table and shows them all placards. And says, I am not leaving this family. That's my favorite scene in the movie. It shows him growing as a character. But the film seems to indicate that she's more important than him. And was she sick? Yes. Is that awful? Yes. Was she on the verge of death? Yes, that's fine. All of this is fine. But as a romance, I don't buy it as much because it makes it less of a mutual relationship and more of a, I screwed up, will you please have me back? And I can't handle that as much.
I guess I would argue that he was, at that point in their relationship, because it was still fairly early, he wasn't 100% positive he would go away from his parents' plan. Mm-hmm. And it's still early on. They were young and immature. So there's, I don't know. There's definitely, layers there for me. It's not just a single black and white. I know what you're saying, and you're not wrong. To me, there were more layers than just that.
I think you're also underestimating just that scene is as much about her showing her insecurities as well. That's why she's reacting so strongly, is that she's not felt secure in this relationship, and she sees this as a betrayal of him. This is reinforcing the negativity that she'd built up in her own mind about the potential end of this or any relationship. And so I felt that expression on her part, being so definitive about it, was just more of an expression of her insecurity in the relationship than it was. She wasn't being irrational. She was expressing herself in her insecurity. And also, he was lying to her about this, and it was a betrayal for him to not tell her what's been going on, to still be going to his family's house and still being introduced to all these women while he's in a relationship with her is a betrayal. And for him to have kept that from her, and then he's not able to say to her that he's willing to that he wants to try and pursue a relationship with her. Again, that just reinforced her insecurity, and it made her more definitive in her feelings. And yes, he would have to win her back after that. He would have to try and get her back, to try and get beyond her insecurities.
This is a conversation that was mimicked back to me on Tuesday. And I
by a woman, I'm assuming.
Yes, and I understand that viewpoint. I think I am bringing something to this film that is not fair to the film. As I said, it's a good film. I enjoyed it. It's very funny and very emotional at times. Him on stage bombing, but also needing that. Right. Needing that is a very cool scene. I mean, it's really something else. The scene in the hospital when he first meets her parents, there's not a mention at all to him of thank you so much for staying with our daughter. They talk about it later, like thank you for being there for her, but not upon arrival. Like if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have known this and whatnot. It's just you're that guy that didn't give the complete truth to our daughter, Satan. I mean, it rubbed me the wrong way, and I paused it again, and I'm like, what the hell is their problem? I'm not trying to take the guy's side all the time. Obviously, it's going to be more obvious at times, but I don't necessarily see layers like everyone else does. Maybe that's why I'm divorced.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't like him because he broke her daughter's heart. I mean, that's kind of.
She didn't tell them the complete truth. Clearly.
Well, think about
how long have they been dating?
A girl breaks your son's heart. Are you on his side or hers?
Right.
I have to know both sides of the story. That's an unfair question.
But most people don't. Most people only care about one side of the story.
Right. That's silly. Oh, it's silly.
But that's most people. Isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And you are right. And I knew that I would have something of a battle in terms of understanding different viewpoints on how this movie played itself out. I think there are layers for you guys, and there's also layers for me, which also has to do with movies. We often see romantic characters like almost have to give up something in order to rekindle the relationship. You can go back to Friends and popular culture. It matters in the context of this show. Ross and Rachel, Ross has to say that he's sorry and really mean it in order to get her back. And I was always on his side in the whole we were on a break thing because, yes, you were on a break, and the part that you did wrong is what you guys never discuss, which is that you didn't tell her the truth and you tried to cover it up afterwards, okay? If you were upfront about it and said this is what happened, sure, but they were on a break. Okay, but no one ever cares. It's all about Jennifer Aniston and Rachel, and it really pissed me off. And I'm holding on to that to this day, 20-some years later.
It's Friends.
No, I know exactly what that sounds like, though. I hear you.
I was going to blame Friends for you not liking this. Yeah, I mean, one thing I think I like this movie as much as I do is we talked about this with 3 Billboards is how they took all the characters and gave them arcs. I think this movie did it the best of any movie this year. There was 6, 7 characters. I mean, both parents on both sides. There was huge arcs there. That scene that you were talking about is your favorite. It was a great scene. And then the scene at the end where the dad comes up to him and they're still pretending not to want to, to cut him off, but they can't. And they don't even resolve it. They just kind of leave you like, they're going to be fine. But I don't know. It was very real, and I liked the ride everybody's arc took me on separately.
Absolutely. And Ray Romano is so underrated. He's so wonderful in this movie. Just such a great character. He's such a dad. He's just such a great dad. I loved that. And I loved the whole backstory that he and Holly Hunter had, and the build that they have going on that's happening almost off screen. The way that they're resolving their problems and the way that is handled is just beautiful. I love the work that both of them did together.
And I also don't you were saying he has to come crawling back. I don't think if she gets sick, she doesn't get sick, they don't think they get back together necessarily. Mm-hmm. I think they move on and go their own. He kind of fell back in love with her while she was sick. So I see what you're saying there too, but I just kind of think they were done if it doesn't happen. They never cross paths again, and that's that. But
I do think people should see it. It's on Prime now, so go for it, stick with it. If you're a dude like me that's like, oh, pausing it twice early on because you're thinking that the film is going to be a one way, it got better for me. That's absolutely for sure, and I understand what you guys say about it.
Do you agree with me? The best 9/11 joke of all time.
Out loud laughing. At first, I didn't know if I'd heard it correctly. And then I realized, oh, he did say that. Wow.
You hear falling out of your seat laughing, but in the theater, that almost happened. It's so unexpected. Even my wife laughed at it. She doesn't laugh at anything. That alone is worth this movie. Not the 9/11 jokes are funny.
Don't forget Ray Romano's setup.
Oh yeah, the whole you need for all that to work, you need it. You need that part of it. Get Out. Josh and I have now both seen that since that came out. Too late, fortunately.
Yeah, that was what, February?
Yeah.
Whoops. It's only been available for rental for
A long
3-4 months now. Yeah, that's okay. What'd you think?
I liked it. I feel like I would have liked it more if I saw it before the buzz, if that makes sense. Everything everybody's saying is absolutely true. I just, at that point, I kind of knew what it was. Mm-hmm. And I think seeing it with a kind of a clean slate, not knowing what it is, would have been that much more effective for me. Instead, I have to kind of know how good it is. And it's all there. I lost the experience because I didn't see it when I feel like I missed out on an experience, more or less. But it's a great movie that deserves everything it's getting.
Yeah, I was surprised with a first time, because he's directed episodes of his television show. He's directed episodes of TV in general, but Jordan Peele is a first-time feature film director. This is like a no meat on it film, which is really something else. And I watched some of the special features, and in an interview, he's talking about how he wanted to make a movie where the main character did everything that we would do, as opposed to doing the opposite, which is what you generally would see in a horror film. He sees that his phone's unplugged, and he's like, what the hell? And he asks the right questions. He takes the right path. He wants to get out of there. He's actually investigating and listening to what his intuition is telling him, whereas most horror characters kind of walk into it without thinking first. The film is smart in that way, and then on top of that, this dark idea behind the film really works. I had to take a minute to figure out, there's a scene in which Bradley Whitford is in front of a group of people, and he's got a picture of our main character up there in a gazebo, and he's making hand signals, and I was trying to figure out to myself, what is this? This is the part where like the horror aspect comes in, right? And then it took me halfway through that scene to realize, oh no, that's what they're doing? Well, this movie is dark and smart and has an aspect to it that, yes, is tense and yes, borrows some aspects from a lot of horror films, including some gore. But for the most part, it's just really smart. I loved watching it. There was just something about it that was so, like, I'm watching the work of a veteran filmmaker here, really pulling all of the strings, as if M. Night Shyamalan had done something like that. I mean, it's in that vein, to be honest.
There's a little M. Night Shyamalan, there's a little Kubrick in there as well.
Yes, absolutely. I'm a big fan of this one, and I hope if it does get any kind of serious awards consideration, with a film released all the way back in February and a very successful film at that by a usual comedy participant, I think that's a massive achievement.
And I don't want to, when I love this movie. I just feel like I was too aware going in.
Sure. And
I missed out on what could have been an amazing experience. So that's kind of all I'm getting at. I'm not by any means taking anything away from this movie. It's a great movie.
Get Out has just gotten better for me throughout the year. I watched it again on Blu-ray, and the thing that hit me so hard was that Lil Rel Howery, who plays the best friend, is Walter from The Big Lebowski. Because what you hear from him throughout the movie, as insane as it sounds, he's right every single time. It's amazing. When you get to the end, you realize this character who's such a comic character, who's so broad, but what he said was coming true the whole time.
He's TSA. I enjoy the
It's the
scene
same
where
thing they did with Walter and the Lebowski. He was right just about every time.
he's sitting in a room with FBI officers and whatnot, I think it is, and he's trying to tell them the story. And for a moment, a brief moment, that you think that they're actually listening to him and believing in him because they look very serious, and then they all bust out in laughter. Wow.
Yeah, I wish I could have nominated him for Best Supporting Actor. There are just a couple of other performances out there that I had to go with ahead of his, but I did nominate Betty Gabriel, who plays the maid. She is just absolutely... She is the most frightening thing in the movie, I think. That scene where he's talking about his phone being unplugged, and she's getting right up in his face, and she almost cracks. That is some acting.
Yeah, and it goes to show you what, I think he had to take less money and a small budget, but with that you get more control. And I think that's, goes to show you that money doesn't necessarily mean artistic. I mean, the less money you have, the more artistic you can be, I think, and he really proved it. And hopefully, whatever the second movie is, he kind of keeps that same vein, doesn't just go take a $200 million budget and go, ruin it all. Yeah. Which he seems smarter than that. American Made, I saw the Tom Cruise movie. It's fun.
Would have been a better episode of The Dollop, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it kind of was like Masterminds, where it was like, it's just not quite. I don't know if it was too long or what, but it was fun, but it just, whether it didn't need to be a movie or whatever it was just not quite what I thought it or what it could have been. I really didn't know what it could be. It is what it is, and it's an entertaining movie, but it kind of begins and ends there for me. I don't remember. You guys are kind of just, it's good.
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, Doug Liman's the director on that one, right? And it's one of his better efforts to me. That and Edge of Tomorrow are a little higher than his other stuff. Well, The Bourne Identity too.
But when you think of,
I should stop talking about.
When you think of the
filmographies,
the dramatic Tom Cruise roles, the Jerry Maguires, the Rain Mans, even Magnolia, this is not in that level at all.
And as for Doug Liman, this isn't even the best movie he directed this year.
John Cena movie.
The Wall is a better movie.
And then Josh watched. We haven't talked about this at all in the podcast yet.
No, it really didn't. It didn't come around here theatrically,
right?
And
but we talked about the trailer for a while.
Yeah, your guys' review is going to determine whether I ever see this movie or not. So,
be my guest.
Well, Ghost Story stars Casey Affleck as a guy who's killed in a car accident and becomes a ghost under a sheet. And is it Rooney Mara?
Yes.
Yeah, Rooney Mara is his girlfriend. She kind of just trying to deal with her grief, but it's weird. I don't know how to describe it because there is no plot, really. He just stands around in this house for a very, very, very long time as the house is then knocked down and turned into something else, and he stays there, and sometimes he has the power to interact, and sometimes he just is there, and he's listening to these people, and some people are there talking a lot and not really saying anything particularly interesting. And then he dies again, and there's another ghost of him there that I don't know. I did not care about this movie. I was about 55 minutes in going, this is just one of those things where this is one of those critical jerk-off movies where critics can just sit and watch Ghost Story and your mind is allowed to wander and you begin to think that this is much deeper than it is because you've got so much time to just sit there and look at stuff. And so your mind goes to very different places thinking about how brilliant this is when really what you're thinking about is how brilliant you are for sussing out how brilliant this movie is.
So you're saying...
But the fact is nothing is happening. There's nothing happening at all.
So you're saying critics are watching this movie with a bag of peaches now.
Critics with a bag of peaches.
This is a bag of peaches movie, yes.
This is not a good movie.
That's hard for you, David. This guy Lowry directed Pete's Dragon.
But okay, there's a different angle on this that had me stay with it because you're right. 55 minutes into it, I'm thinking, would something fucking happen? at any point other than somebody dying. That would be great.
Or the dead guy dying again.
Well,
I don't even know what that means.
What I started to understand towards the end of the film, once they got to a point where he was standing in the same spot where this house was, either the spot of his death or the spot of his home. That's what the film means, that like a soul will return to their home. Right. And I think that the home is really what it is, because he refers to in flashbacks and in certain scenes that are taking place in the present or future or past, whatever the case may be, he's stating that he isn't wanting to move. For some reason, he just can't get it out of his head that he doesn't want to move. And then this building turns into like a futuristic building, and it's set in like the distant future. It's like where all of the money in the movie went was this particular one scene where it's Blade Runner-esque outside. And I was like, wait a minute, what is going on? All of a sudden, I'm back in the ball game. I want to know what exactly they mean here. Then we start to see like colonial times or something, and there's carriage wagons, and they're building a house, and all of a sudden you realize this is the house in which he lived much later on. Knowing that, and knowing why there were so many, this is like a pregnant pause that is like overdue, okay, in this movie. If City of Angels had pregnant pauses, that's the one movie I go to every time when I think about unnecessary pregnant pauses. This is like a past term baby, okay? Good Lord, make a decision, for crying out loud. We get it. But I started to think about certain dreams that I've had in my life where you're standing in a room and it's like you can't talk, but everything is happening around you, and it's like the future is taking place in front of you. And all of a sudden I started to realize, I think David Lowery is trying to say that. Whether that's interesting or not is up to the viewer.
I'm just going to ask you that. Is it interesting?
That is the only interesting thing about it, if I'm right. I'm thinking about Pete's Dragon and how it hit me on a very visceral level. And I'm trying to think about him as a child. He must have something in his past that tells him that this is what happens when this happens. This is what happens when this happens. And he's making films about that. It's like he identified with Pete's Dragon because he had something similar happen to him in a dream or in a thought. And I imagine many dreams that I had where time passes by and I'm still in the same spot and I can't do anything. It's like I can't pass on to the next phase. The film shows us that he has the potential to make a choice to do that, but he doesn't. And then, yes, time circles around on itself. The film opens up similar to the way the Tree of Life opens up, in which you're shown time and space as like something tangible, and the music behind it is similar to the score from Interstellar. Makes you think
you're doing
that
a great
time is
job
linear.
of taking me out of this movie. Interstellar and Tree of Life. I appreciate it.
I am here to service you, sir.
I mean, you mentioned dream-like. It's much like somebody trying to describe a dream they have. It's incredibly boring, and you want to get out of that conversation immediately.
So you're saying that you want me to stop talking? I understand.
I got to imagine this conversation is more entertaining than the movie.
Yes.
And I remember watching the trailer and being like, this is going to be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then that same trailer played before something else I watched, and all of a sudden it looked boring. And I was just like, wait a second. And then it came into the video store, and I'm like, this never came out. What the hell's going on? And then all of a sudden you start to see the critical reviews go down. It went selected cities.
I know people don't want to hear about this again, but the reason why it didn't go out wide is because of Casey Affleck and the allegations.
But those allegations did come before the Oscars, and you still got an Oscar.
I do think I don't think it's worth your time, if this makes sense. Okay, but I'm a Neanderthal. God.
Sorry, that's an inside joke from a Facebook post he made earlier today.
I'm going to recommend this to some people, but not to the general populace. I don't think it's a very good film, but I think certain scenes are very interesting.
I think if you're insanely pompous and like the sound of your own voice in your head while you're doing something, this is the movie for you. You're going to sit there and think of just how brilliant you are because you get this.
Like
There's
a hipster.
nothing to get. He's
Like a
just
hipster.
standing there. Stop.
Well,
He's just standing there.
I was only assuming that I might be right, not saying I'm right about his intentions.
I don't think he's meaning to attack you. I think he's attacking other critics.
Either. I'm not.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, right?
It kind of sounds like
that you didn't.
It kind of sounds like you're explaining it, but then saying, "But it doesn't matter. It's still boring."
Oh yeah, it is most definitely boring. Like, gosh, maybe the most interesting scene is her eating a pie. I want to know what was in that pie. But you could just munch it down. Yeah. Like, hey, it's me on a Saturday.
What kind of pie?
What's that?
Except she's
What
Rooney
kind of pie?
Mara and she's 98 pounds.
Right, and that's why she had to go vomit. I have no idea what kind of pie. That's why I want to know. I'd eat pie. I do.
I was trying to make a peach joke. But...
He's going to be making peach jokes for weeks.
No, I think we're good. Nothing really came out in '87. Nothing of note. And
it was really the pits. Peach pit. No. Okay.
Wasn't there a? I almost put the '87 movies in my notes. I thought there was something with a pit in the title, so I thought that's where you were going. But you were. I think I'm wrong.
I don't know. I ignored them when I noticed their box offices were all under $1 million, and they're not readily available.
Right. Next week. Just Getting Started. I don't know what that is.
Tommy Lee Jones and Morgan Freeman competing for girls at a senior house.
I'll be there for that one. And then I'd imagine we're going to do I, Tanya. That's coming out, selected, and Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Sure.
Those for sure. Do we have any classic ideas?
Top 5 Tommy Lee Jones or Morgan Freeman?
Oh, well, if we're going to go that route, then Tommy Lee Jones, Morgan Freeman, maybe it's time to bring Shawshank to the podcast, The Fugitive. I know I can see both of your eyes slightly glazing over at the suggestions of both of those, but look at the enthusiasm. It's just, I can smell it like a peach.
Shawshank would be easy because we never did it, but we did watch it at one point. So that would be, we wouldn't necessarily have to go back and watch it to do it on the show. I'd be up for that if Sean is. It's up to him. And then top 5 Morgan Freeman, Tommy Lee Jones performances.
That's a big base of film.
That'll be fun. But that is our show. I do want to thank our Patreon supporters for helping support the show. We have Charlie Messing, our key grip. We need to get a line producer credit.
If there isn't a line producer credit by Monday, I'm not coming in.
Greg's here. Corey and Josh are character actors.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Our associate producer, Jason from New Mexico.
This is crazy. You want me to hit you?
That's right.
What, like in the face?
Surprise me.
Our executive producer, Uncle Jeff.
You talking to me? You talking to me?
And our movie star, Dave Severs.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
If you want to be a Patreon supporter, head over to ihatecritics.net/Patreon or click on the Patreon link on the front of our page and donate as little or as much as you want. And we'll go from there. As like I said, it's next week is the Old Man movie, the Tanya Harding movie, and the Deer movie. So it'll be a fun. I'm excited to talk about Killing of a Sacred Deer and I, Tanya, for that matter. So it should be a fun podcast. So come back and please go out and share this with your friends if you enjoy the show. We would like our audience is growing. We'd like to keep it that way. And any word of mouth you can help will really help out. So otherwise, stick around for Flick Chart.
That ought to do it. Thanks very much, Ray.
And we're the 3 best friends that anybody could have. We're the 3 best friends that anyone could have. We're the 3 best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best 3 friends that anybody can have. I mean the 3 best friends that anybody can have. The friends, 3 best friends.
You guys have time for a Flick Chart?
Sure. Yeah.
One of these days will be like, no. I'm like, all right. That's Everybody waited around until afterwards and we didn't do it. Castaway or Lost in Translation?
Lost in Translation.
Lost in Translation.
I agree. Adventureland or The Matrix?
I really like Adventureland. I'm going to go Adventureland, actually.
The Matrix, Bob.
I thought Adventureland would lose 1-2. I apologize. I thought Sean would go with The Matrix. Stage door cartoon. I'm going to get rid of that one. That's Looney Tunes thing. The Shining or The Breakfast Club?
The Shining.
The Breakfast Club.
It's The Shining for me.
It was close. It was really close.
I figured on your end.
Not at all.
Right.
Full Metal Jacket or Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End?
Full Metal Jacket.
Agreed.
Sean had an idea last week. What if we take our classic and run that up against movies and see how it does?
Our current classic.
I don't think The Room would last.
But I'm wondering, because it is an enjoyable watching experience. So let's just see where we can
All right.
see how it goes. The Room or Gangs of New York?
Gangs of New York.
See? I would much rather watch The Room.
Gangs of New York is homework. It's still, it's at least a watchable.
That's Scorsese.
Gangs of New York.
Yeah. The Room or Role Models?
Role models.
I really like Role Models more than I should. The Room or Batman Begins?
Batman Begins.
Agreed.
The Room or Being John Malkovich?
Being John Malkovich.
John Malkovich.
The Room or Lawrence of Arabia?
The Room. I can't stand Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh, no.
It's so long.
I know. Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah, was this the one that I said I would have liked better if I saw it in the theater?
Oh, it's
yes, it is.
If I had to watch one, I'd pick The Room.
I tried watching Lawrence of Arabia again because I had a good experience of it, having seen it in the theater. And then trying to watch it at home, I just kept falling asleep. I would watch The Room again tomorrow. I never want to see Lawrence of Arabia again.
The Room or The Sound of Music?
The Room.
The Room.
All of a sudden, we're starting to... We're in the top 500. Or no, we're in the top 600. The Room or Superman 2?
Jesus Christ.
Well, what it's doing is it's moving it down.
The Room?
Regular Richard Donner cut. Superman 2 either way.
I'm going to go The Room as well. The Room or Face Off?
Oh, that's perfect.
Which one do I enjoy hating more? The Room is far more enjoyable.
I'll go Face Off. It's closer than it should be.
I'm going to go The Room as well, but I think we're going to have one more chance and then it's stuck where it's at. The Room or Gone in 60 Seconds?
I really hate Gone in 60 Seconds, whereas I know I can have a good time watching The Room. I'll go The Room.
The Room, big time.
The Room is now 533 on our flick chart.
Yeah.
And Being John Malkovich is 532.
That should probably be a little bit higher. Interesting. You want to check out this? There's a Vanity Fair discussion with Jordan Peele talking about Get Out fan theories, and he's actually embracing the theory that Get Out is in the Being John Malkovich universe.
Oh.
He even ran the theory past
Spike Jonze?
Spike Jonze when they were hanging out, and they both like it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Then you have like the Big Lebowski where people have all these theories and then you run out by the Coen Brothers. That's dumb.